The next morning the storm had passed, but the fog had returned. The stream that was running into the cave had swollen by an arm's reach. Bowen, having the last watch, left the cave to relieve himself. In the twilight of dawn, the world before Bowen's eyes was an opaque one of grays. He had made his way carefully from the cave mouth so as not to slip into the bog. Once he finished his business, he realized he could not see his way back. "Wonderful," he muttered to himself and peered into the mist. The cracking of a branch brought his head around. Pale fog and tree shadow was all he saw, but he had the unnerving feeling of being watched. Goose flesh ran up his arms. His breath was a subtle steam in the chill air. Thinking of the axe that lay beside his bedroll in the cave, he silently cursed himself for not being armed. The idea of calling out to his comrades crossed his mind, but the only thing worse than being devoured by monsters was listening to his brother and friends make fun of him for a month if there was nothing there in the first place. His heart leapt into his throat as he heard the sound of something coming on quickly, splashing loudly through the mire. He put his back against the nearest tree and balled his fists. Something akin to a mireling came rushing out of the mist, much larger, though, with black fur escaping from between its green-white carapace. It stood a head taller than him, and it was running at full gait. He felt the scream bubbling up from the pit of his stomach as the details of the many black mandibles of its face came into focus. When it saw him, it stopped short and nearly fell over. It looked back once, then back to him. There was a timeless moment when all seemed to freeze. Then a finger-sized fountain of ichor sprayed from between its segmented eyes, and, in the same instant, something stuck into the tree beside his head with a loud thump. The monster fell to its knees, shoulders slumped. A shiver ran through its body, then it collapsed forward, dead. For 3 pounding heartbeats, there was silence before he realized there was something else. A repetitious metal jingle of a suit of ringmail. A figure, clad in bronze and wielding a gilded bow, materialized before him. She strode purposefully up to the dead beast, looked down at the carcass, and up to Bowen. She spoke with an effeminate voice of polished steel. "Bugbear." Bowen was shaken. He had to remind himself to breathe. His right hand moved of its own volition up to the tree bark beside his right ear. His fingers found a cylinder of wood protruding from the tree, not 1 hair's width from his head. His eyes moved right as he saw the fletchings. "The arrow!" he swallowed. "The arrow went right through it." She walked up to him, brandishing the bow. "It was a good shot." She raised her chin. "Do I know you?" Hamish woke to the sounds of some commotion out near the cave's entrance. The fire had nearly gone out, and fog was creeping in along with a chill. The others were stirring. He quickly surmised that Bowen was missing, buckled his sword belt on, and went to the cave entrance to peer into the mist. 2 figures were approaching. Hamish's hand went to his sword. He recognized Bowen and the woman, Vagelin's sister. "Well, well, well," said Hamish. "Don't flatter yourself, sellsword." She pushed past him, went to the smoldering fire, and knelt to breathe new life into it. Bowen stopped at the entrance. "Good morning, Hamish," he smiled. Sparrow and Brune watched the newcomer from where they sat, getting their gear together with an easy calm. Zaldivar slowly stopped snoring. Hild stood, holding a long bundle of white cloth, and watched Ventessa's movements. "So," said Vagelin as she sat up. "So," agreed Ventessa as she stood looking over the meager camp, her lips curled into a sneer. Vagelin stood and patted dirt from her knees. "Took you long enough to catch up," she baited. Ventessa's head pivoted like a bird of prey, and the grimace on her face melted when she met her sister's eyes. Vagelin was smiling. After a moment, Ventessa matched that expression. Ventessa broke the stare off. "Vague, why do you insist on this?" She gestured to the others. "You're not the only one who can get things done, Ven," Vagelin stated as she pulled the satchel over her shoulder. Hild interrupted them with appropriate difference. "Excuse me, my ladies." To Vagelin, she held out the white cloth-wrapped object that she had been holding. After a moment, Vagelin took it and began to unravel the strips of cloth. Hild said, "I took the liberty of cleaning it up for you during my watch last night." The white cloths fell free. Vagelin looked over the bright oiled steel, the detailed metal of the hilt, her father's sword, cleaned and polished. She had seen the weapon 1,000 times, but this was the first time she had ever actually touched it. "I've never been one for sword work." "Let me," Ventessa implored with an open hand. Then, as she watched her sister, she retracted her hand. "No, you keep it. Keep it until we find Father." "Here," said Sparrow, as he came in from outside the cave. He tossed Vagelin a soft leather sheath. "It will not fit perfectly, but I think it'll do for now." She caught it and immediately wondered what had become of the original, silver-lined and jeweled scabbard. She looped the sheath through her belt, dropped the blade down into it, and although it did not quite fit right, it felt right. Ventessa was slowly nodding as she looked over her older sister. "Where did you find it?" Brune answered, "In the field, beside the stead. We followed a well-weathered trail here, though we could not tell what had made it." Ventessa scratched her chin with a bronzed gauntleted finger. "I tracked a bugbear into this cave. I'll bet it connects to the aquifer that the Fae have been coming from." "Stands to reason," offered Hamish as he inspected the water running through the cave. Ventessa looked down her nose at Hamish. Then she caught herself and tried to hide her initial disdain. "I tied my horse just outside the mire. Do we send them home or leave them with some feed?" Vagelin walked over to stand next to Hamish and looked down the gloom-filled passage. "Depends how long we'll be. Down there, I suppose." "Long enough," murmured Sparrow, who was strapping his 2 curved swords to his hips. Hamish declared, "The Greybrook stock will lead the others. The chargers will keep them safe. For food, I've got dried meat and bread I can share. A bit of cheese, but the cheese is mine. Lady Vagelin, would you make a note for the castle? Let them know of our situation, pin it to your saddle, and set the horses running." Everyone started moving out to make ready. Hamish pulled Zaldivar aside and inquired, "Do you need any sundries from this bog before we head out?" Zaldivar shook his head. "I've a full stock. Prepared a few alchems in advance. Things we may need and what not. Besides, I'm always foraging." "Of course. Mind you, we'll need light." "I know, Hamish," said Zaldivar. He turned to walk away. "I'm just reminding you," Hamish said to Zaldivar's back. "I don't want you to forget anything. The lanterns are in your pack." Zaldivar stopped and spun on Hamish. "I forgot once. I don't need a nanny," he snapped. Hamish tested the fastenings on the short spear and shield on his back and the sword on his hip. He laughed a little as he replied, "No nanny?" His voice rose an octave and he waved a finger. "Then no sweets for you, little boy." Zaldivar shook his head and frowned. "You're sick, Ham." Investigate.